Okay, welcome to the reading of the release notes. That's what we're going to be doing and talking about impact and everything that is in them. This isn't as much going to be a commentary, although I'm going to comment quite a bit, I feel like. And that's fine. This is what we're dealing with. 11.2, this update from Apple for Logic and a new iPad version as well. And we've been waiting, about 6 months since 11.1 came out. And there's a ton of stuff in the release notes. We're going to go through them. I would say the majority of things are efficiency changes. They're making it better. We got a few new bigger features we talked about in the morning stream. We will go over those a little bit just to recap, but certainly this is going to be an interesting conversation because at the end of this, what you're going to see is that we had new, deeper features inside the iPad version of Logic and less deep inside the OS, the Mac OS version. And that just points even stronger to my long-standing theory that we're all going to wake up one day, probably in 6 months from now, and the iPad version of Logic will be Logic, and it won't any longer just be a separate thing. So let's dive into this. We'll go over the main features more quickly. Most of you probably have seen these already. The flashback capture, which is just the capture recording functionality that we've already had for many years. But now it applies to audio when the transport is in play mode. But we've already had MIDI flashback capture for a long time, and I use it all the time. I've made many videos about it. It's one of my favorite features, and now I'm sure that I'll like some of the audio part of that as well. But it's a solid take, a nice little tweak, adding the audio component to that. The enhanced stem splitter, again, we've already had the stem splitter, but now says greater fidelity, audio fidelity. And it can also pull out guitar and piano. I've messed with this a number of times today. I mean, it's what it is. It's good. It's not amazing. We're great. It's always nice to have enhanced part of this. But this is one of those features that's, it's not exactly a core part of Logic. It's not like part of how the mixer functions or something. This is still like an add-on that they can keep on progressively changing, enhancing, depending on who's doing the coding for it. But this is a really popular thing right now, to have a stem splitter that does things, and this one is doing more with each of these updates. We have the writing tools in the notepad, which we had the writing tools outside of the notepad, but now they're directly in there. One use of this that I think is really interesting is going to be if you're stuck on some sort of issue inside Logic, you can easily now just ask ChatGPT in there for help. And there's a 63% chance it will be useful and a 37% chance it's going to just make stuff up and tell you something completely wrong. But I'm going to use it for lyrics if I need help rhyming, if I'm feeling a little chord degenerate for a day, maybe it can help me do some chords, but you still have to take all of that and put it into the project yourself. The new sound packs, the Dance Floor Rush, the Magnetic Imperfections, and the Toastin' pack, they're all great. They're fine. We get new packs every time. I made a video about that not too long ago. It's fine. Search and select. This is we're about to hit our first one of my very favorite things to do when we look at release notes. The search and select, you get to navigate large projects with ease by searching and selecting tracks by name or track number. Awesome. There's a key command you can assign to it. Down below where it says other features include, it is now possible to search and select tracks by name and track number. They never proofread these things clearly. It's like they have two features, 3 sentences apart, and they couldn't even be bothered to read this once and make sure grammatics. I know that's me, my pessimism. It's not the point of the video. Some of you are like, who cares? Who cares? I'm like, take pride in your work. I care, but you don't have to care. That's not a big deal. But the other new features, we have undo history is now saved with each project. You have to turn it on in the settings, but turn it on. It's a great feature. This one I actually really like. When a portion of a MIDI region is copy and pasted using a marquee selection, the actual region has the edges of the notes underneath that aren't visible. That's awesome. We got a Dolby Atmos, Direct 2.0 monitoring option. I don't know how many of you are using Dolby Atmos or spatial audio, but they did add a few things with that. There's a new vertical slider. Cool. There's an option to create a new empty take and MIDI take folders. I suppose that's so that you can maybe pencil in or use the piano roll or the paintbrush to add notes without having to leave the folder ecosystem. So that seems nice. The chord track can be imported from different Logic projects. Great. The Dolby Atmos plugin now offers a switch. An option to switch the rendering mode between music and movie. If you're doing stuff in Atmos, you'll know that is an important thing. The mixer can be configured to show long faders, which I will be using all the time. Great. I love long faders. It's like such a waste of space sometimes with the mixer, especially if you want to put on a second monitor. Ableton Link and MIDI clock now can be at the same time. I didn't know that they couldn't, but I don't really use Ableton Link all that much. But for those who do, then that's a thing. It's now possible to create a marker from a marquee selection. Cool. I will not be doing that probably. And then folder stacks can now be directly converted to summing stacks. That is somewhat useful, especially if you do the wrong one and then want to change it. It's a little bit easier. Okay, so those are all the features. Yay! Probably should have been called 11.1.3. But because of all of the other stuff that we're now going to talk about, I mean, there's enough. There's quite a bit of stuff in terms of fixes. We don't go through every single stability and reliability item, but most of them end with or have a sentence or a phrase in there that says, cause Logic Pro to quit. Logic Pro no longer hangs. Logic Pro is left in an unresponsive state. So these are all like those things that they're fixing to make it so that it doesn't crash as often. And so there's a bunch of things that you never would have run into. You're probably not loading the Alchemy preset fairy wings and having Logic Pro hang. Maybe you did, but probably not. LA Winter says, did they add more stack layers yet? And the answer is no. They did not add anything that anybody was asking for, except for people who wanted the stem splitter to pull out guitars and piano. That's the only thing that they probably added that anybody was asking for. And maybe some of these things that make it run smooth or resolves an issue where Logic Pro could quit unexpectedly when clicking on a chord in the chord track. Yay! Okay, so we have some more of those things. Accessibility, they added 6 things that add additional accessibility to Logic. I feel like this list should be longer for those of you who use VoiceOver or need accessibility features. Logic does quite a bit, never enough. Let's see, Stem Splitter. The track stack created by Stem Splitter now uses the same output as the source track. That actually is a handy, it's a small thing, but I have noticed that. And then Stem Splitter now retains selection settings when working in a Logic project. Cool. Okay. Mixer. Those things sound like things that they could have just left off the list, but whatever. Mixer. There's a number of things with a mixer. Link mode enabled. Surround object panner windows now update to show the panner for channel selection. I mean, these are things that I'm not really using too much. Command clicking the mute button on a VCA channel strip or output channel now mutes all channel strips of the same type as it should have in the past. When input format for a channel strip is changed with a key command, inserted plugins now switch to the matching format. Seems, again, great. And shift clicking a send slot or an output slot on a channel strip in the mixer now highlights the correct destination as expected. That was an issue for me, it always has been. So I'm glad that it's, again, seems to be working. There's just a number of things here. I don't like things, making sure they're dimmed right. Make sure that metering was working correct. I don't want to just read all of these out loud, but there's a bunch of like little things that are fixed that apparently were broken. I don't know how long they were broken, but they were broken. And, or they should have worked a certain way and never did. Okay. But a lot of things in there. Hopefully that'll be a mixer that everyone can use with a little bit more confidence. Placidon says the volume control at the top was made into just a meter. It's true. I see that. Okay. Smart tempo. There was a few things with smart tempo. Again, a lot of these things that either you had an issue or you didn't even know there were issues, but not a lot of like new features, like resolving issues, more reliable analysis. I'm trying to see. I read through this. I didn't see anything that was really stood out, but a lot of stuff with this. And this is an area of Logic that I'm glad they're working on. Some of the flex / smart tempo functionality, some of my favorite, and they continue to spend time making it better. This is a good thing, that they're doing so many things where they're resolving issues or fixing issues or doing things that should be expected but weren't happening the way they should. Okay, cool. Ellie Winter says, do the text writing tools work on Intel? And I don't believe they do. Nope. Spatial audio and surround. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things with the spatial audio functionality. Speakers playing the right way, sounds from certain panning when it's being downmixed playing the right way. A new fader to control elevation, which I felt like we really needed, is there now. It's good. There are a lot of changes. If you're doing stuff in spatial audio, this was a must-have update, I feel like. Okay, cool. Automation, a number of automation things. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, 9. I can't count. But a number of things are just fine-tuning automation. Again, a feature of fixing things that just weren't maybe working as they should have, or that they broke at some point, or that they implemented not fully, just stuff like that. Studio instruments. Here's a couple. This will show you, since the studio instruments were released, we've gotten less than 10 tweaks on them, probably. But these two improve the response of the studio piano when repeating notes of the same pitch with the studio grain 1 mic setting. Cool. And then fixes an issue where low notes in the studio piano could be cut off. Unexpectedly when lifting the sustain pedal or playing very high notes. Which of course the high notes shouldn't get cut off. They should ring out because there's no dampener on them in the first place. Mastering assistant. This is something it's been driving me crazy. Toggling the bypass control and mastering assistant during playback no longer causes unexpected noises in the output. That happens to me all the time. And I'm always A/Bing it, and I'm using it quite a bit. It was not great. Not great to play in front of people, especially. Okay. So, plugins. We have a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 tweaks of some sort. A couple of these are bigger deals than others. And so there's some things here that are important. Let's go down through the top though. Option click dragging a copy to copy a marquee selection of the track no longer causes unsaved changes in the open plugin windows to reset unexpectedly. I know for a fact that a number of people have been having issues with this. That's just a fix. That's not a big deal, but it's a fix. If you didn't know that this was happening, there's a chance it was happening and you didn't know and you were just getting your mixes messed up. Every once in a while, someone says to me, hey, Logic, it seems like my mixes are different than, when I bounce them out than when I was actually working on them. And the truth is, it could have been something like this. You could have just messed up your mix without even knowing about it because the marquee tool was helping refresh all your unsaved plugins. Save, and save often. Then we have some plugin manager things. If you use the plugin manager, it's going to work better now. That's great. The fat effects has a little visual change. That's great. There's a thing that the tuner could break with the link state of things. You can do more than 24 characters. Okay, cool. You probably didn't know channel pressure events weren't being sent out from the scripter, but they weren't apparently. Let's go down. MIDI plugins now map to both axes of an XY pad in a plugin. This has driven me crazy for like a decade. This is so bad. It was nearly impossible to get the XY to work when you're controlling it with a MIDI plugin. And now you can do it. And the angels rejoiced. So that's a big deal. If you've ever just given up trying to do the XY pad control from a MIDI plugin, well, now you can go back and actually do it. And I'll probably make a video about it at some point because most of you are like, I don't even know what that means. But if you do know what that means, then you're like, there's cheering over on your side of this stream. Resolves an issue where MIDI notes played through AUV3 software instruments. Okay, cool. You can now map the vintage organ, Morph-Wah, and Leslie controls to the same CC number. I actually really like that too. Cool. The center point for the frequency control and ring shifter is now 0 hertz. It's like, okay, great. Thank you for fixing the things. Just fix them. This one, though, is one of my other favorites. The QRS reverb now offers a phase reversal switch for first reflections. I believe on the hardware unit of the QRS, the first reflections have their separate output. And so you could actually do the different things with them, pan them differently. So this is just giving us a little bit of functionality. Even though it's like a clone of the QRS that we have in Logic, some of the routing functionality was a little different. And now we're able to do some of the cool stuff with the first reflections. That's cool. If you're using QRS, then now you know a little bit more of what you can do with it. And I also hated that I couldn't use the mouse, scroll my mouse to change QRS settings. Now we can. Okay, there's a few other small things, but those were the big things from this one. Alchemy. So one of the things I've loved about Apple over the years is that Alchemy has not been ever abandoned. They didn't just buy it from Camel Audio and then ignore it like they've done with some of their other instruments. This is an instrument that continuously gets tweaks and made better, and it's already amazing, but we're continuing. You can see that we have 9 different things in here, maybe more. I think it's just 9. But some of them should have already been working. Sustain off messages are now handled correctly when using Alchemy with the Arpeggiator MIDI plugin. Okay, resolves an issue where notes from MPE MIDI mono mode controllers could cut off unexpectedly. And if you haven't used Alchemy with MPE or MIDI mono, you need to like rethink how you're controlling your instruments. I mean, that's one of the best things about Logic right now, are all the MPE, because it's the expressiveness and the way to control it. It's been the first upgrade to how we use something like MIDI has gotten in the like forever, and it's just so cool. And so if you're just using an one MIDI keyboard that doesn't do MPE, then you really should consider making that one of your next purchases. Okay, let's see. Presets that include spectral effects now reliably play effects on the first try, as opposed to the second try. Some of these notes are funny. Notes shared between two different chord triggers are no longer unexpectedly dropped. Rapidly trigger notes. Mono mode is disabled. The mono bend, okay, resolves. It's just making it better. I mean, that's really what we're getting here. And they're continuing to work on it. That's great. I love that. Sampler, and quick alchemy all together get 7 different notes on this. The chord key stage is actually one of the keyboards I use in that's from Q in the comments. That's one of the ones I use for the MPE. It's just great. And there's a huge thing we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to do one more stream, and that stream is going to talk about the iPad release notes and do a quick talk about the future of Logic in the iPad, and I'll have probably the key stage hooked up for it. We'll see. Okay, so the sampler, quick alchemy, just some format changes to the interface. The sample alchemy now offers an export audio file option. Cool. Sampler no longer allows envelope values greater than can be reproduced to be entered. I appreciate that. They're just fixing some stuff. We do have a couple more session player things down here, although it's interesting because we had session players up above. Once again, they're not proofreading their session notes. Just send them to me in advance. I will go through and format these so they look great. Seriously, take some pride. Okay, session player regions are now serenaders. Now serenaders as expected. Is that supposed to be renders as expected? After multiple arrangement markers are copied using option drag? Surrenders? I was just talking about typos. That's a typo. I'm guessing renders. It can't be surrenders. It has to be now renders as expected. Thank you for the clarity. That's good. I didn't know that was an issue. Changing the project sample rate no longer causes session bass player tracks to sound distorted. That's one I have not heard as well, but I don't change my sample rate most of the time once I'm in a project. So that's a pretty small chance that that's happening to most of us. Replacing a chord progression, and the chord track now immediately triggers a new performance in the keyboard session player. Good, because I actually did notice every once in a while. Changing the type of an arrangement marker now triggers a new session player performance. So I use arrangement markers all the time, and this is a feature we've needed, where if you have like a verse and you change it to a chorus, it's going to give you a new session player performance based on the part of the song. That's great. Curved automation created by session player plugins is no longer written as stepped. Thank you. Session player editors now update as expected when switching from live loops to tracks view. That's something I have refused to use live loops in Logic. Maybe one of these days I'll actually do it, but I don't work that way. If I did, I would probably switch to Ableton or Bitwig or FL Studio. Studio drummer no longer plays unexpected fills in regions longer than 8 bars. I did notice that, actually. Every once in a while, I'm like, that drummer is playing like a real drummer, putting fills where they don't belong. So true. Session player region created by clicking the Add Session Player Region button, the plus, at the end of the existing region on the track is created in the correct position as expected. I didn't notice that was having an issue either. So maybe it wasn't having an issue every time. Merge recording over a session player region now works in cycle mode. Cool. And then create region at playhead now works in session player tracks when the playhead is at the start of the project. Okay, some of the things I have never noticed. But again, looks like I misspoke earlier when I said they weren't doing much with the session players. But it looks like actually, now that I think about it, the ones that were above were probably session instruments. I'm going to go back up and check. So yeah, studio instruments. So I had those mixed up. Why aren't they next to each other? They're like the same thing. Okay, back down to the session players, not the studio instruments. Let's look at what they've done with the drummer and drum machine designer. 3 things that they're mentioning. We'll scroll this up. Okay, swapping kit pieces in drum machine designer no longer causes unexpected changes in volume from kit piece to kit piece. One of those things that somebody noticed, but most of us wouldn't have. Fixes an issue where drum machine designer could unexpectedly convert to mono mode when a pattern region on the track is converted to MIDI. Cool. And then resolves an issue where recording on a MIDI track could also trigger all subtracks of a drum machine design track unexpectedly in certain situations. One that I've never encountered. So 3 things that are pretty much invisible changes that maybe someone's had an issue with, but most of us would not have. Chords and the chord track. I was hoping for so many changes here. But new chords are now created with the correct 8-bar default length in projects with time signatures other than 4/4. That's one. And here we go. Snap settings are now correctly processed when creating chords at the current playhead position. Neither of those are things that are going to change our lives. Maybe somebody is having issues with the time signatures other than 4/4, but I'm a 4/4 kind of guy. Bounce and export. We have a number of things here. Looks like things that should have been working are now maybe working. And another 15 things they probably broke in the meantime. Here we go, though. An option to bounce ARA plugins in place without bouncing the other plugins on the channel is now available. Assuming you're using Rosetta, because they haven't mentioned that ARA is working with Universal, who knows? So a number of things with bouncing. Here's some imports changes. Fixes an issue when importing a Logic project with tempo track as one of the import options. Cool. Logic 9 projects can now be opened or imported as expected. Woohoo! I did hear some people who were moaning that wasn't working. So, cool. When importing multiple Apple loops, the import dialog no longer incorrectly offers the Smart Tempo multi-track set as an option. Good. And then imported AAC files with low bitrate are now the correct length and playback properly. Thank you. Live loops, 4 changes or something. Of course, they put a comma at the end, so did they delete some of it? I don't know. Resolves an issue where cells created in the session player tracks could be empty when both the live loop grid and tracks area are both open, comma. Okay, I shouldn't complain. They're just small changes. 3 recording things. When recording MIDI with region erase and auto punch, the replace area of the region no longer extends to the end of a bar if the auto punch zone ends inside the bar. It's like all of these things that should have, like common sense wise, been doing a certain thing. They have to make them do that thing. So I don't have a problem with these these type of changes. I think it's good to continually make it better. I just wonder. They're making changes that are for this whole update, which are very minimal at best. Takes and comping fixes an issue. Okay, so we're just fixing an issue. Selected MIDI take regions are now deselected as expected when a different MIDI take region is selected. Okay, great. Track stacks, a few different changes. Flex time and flex pitch. Let's see if there's anything in here that we can determine if we get better sound quality at all. But I don't think so. No. So easier to create some of the markers. Flex pitch notes are now immediately in view. Oh my gosh, this is maybe this is maybe one of the best updates of the entire 11.2. When you go into flex pitch, all of the notes start like way at the top. You have to scroll to find them. Can't tell you how crazy that makes me. When it'd be so easy to say, just center the view on them and zoom to fit or what. It's like, yes, this is that's a big deal for me. And this is nice. Enabling flex on a track does all of the alternatives get activated as well. I wonder if that takes a lot longer to analyze if it hasn't been, maybe. And then flex transients are now more reliably placed at correct positions. Okay, so it's better. I don't know if the sound quality is better, but I'm assuming every time they make changes, it gets better. Nothing consequential with the step sequencer. So key signatures can now be copied from Apple Loops to the global signature track. They're getting better with this. I think someone had a dream who works for Apple about Apple Loops. They started off really strong, 15 years ago with it. And then they hit a wall. And then they've built all of these functions in Logic around what Apple Loops, the dream was. Flex time, flex pitch, all the smart tempo, all of those things they had to put in place. And now they're actually able to do their dream of the Apple Loops. And so Apple Loops are becoming a much more sneakily involved part of what Logic does. Because now, if I want to do some really cool things without having to type in the chords myself, I can find some really cool Apple Loops that they've been releasing, all these packs that have things. They bring in the tempo, then the drums, the piano, and the bass all follow what those Apple Loops are doing. We're just like another generation away from making it so the Apple Loops themselves could be changing to match the chord track. And I think that we're getting to that place, but we're not quite there. Let's see. All the rest of the stuff is pretty minor at this point. Let's see. I don't think It is now possible to move chords and chord groups in the ruler with the global tracks view closed by pressing the command key, then dragging. Oh, okay. So that's nothing big. That's a small thing. Whew. And Plastodon says they can't load the Tosin loops on an Intel Mac. That's interesting. I would have sworn, but maybe... Yeah, I would have sworn that those would have been backwards compatible. It seems like a jerk move if they're not. There's a track freeze, source only mode now play in sync with the rest of the project, which I've frozen stuff, but I don't usually freeze source only. I usually freeze the whole thing, so I wouldn't have run into that. Selection-based processing with the option create take enabled no longer causes a looping on the track immediately after it to the stop at the position where the take was created. I need to explore this because I didn't realize or know when they did the take option for that. So I don't know if you know what that is, but say I've got like a file here. We're going to do process selection-based processing. Create a new take. So this is, it's like baby steps, man. The best version of selection-based processing comes from Steinberg with Nuendo and Cubase, where you can do selection-based processing, but then they have an offline process history, and you can just open it back up and make changes. Whereas with this, let's say I just make a change, and then I say apply. Now I can come through and say, you know what? I want all of that, or I want all of that, or all of that, the EQ'd, uneq'd, the original. This is like a halfway to there. What I really want is to be able to say, I want to reopen, can I not even do it now? No. Let's zoom in. It looks like you can't even, oh yeah, you can. You just have to hit the right place. So selection-based processing, like it's still there, but it doesn't let me go back and change things. Now, here's what I would do most of the time now is I would just save this channel strip as the setting and then reload that, make the changes, and then reprocess the original. So there are ways to do this, but there are ways to do it better. We just don't have access to them. But this is a nice thing to be able to do offline process by using the take folder. Perfect. Apple loops, 4 different things with this. Deleting an Apple loop that includes chords from the tracks area now deletes the loop from the tracks area as well as the chord region. Okay, so deleting an Apple loop deletes the chord region. Okay, cool. Multiple Apple loops from the same loop family are dragged into the tracks area project. The project tempo is now changed to match the tempo of the loop family. Sweet. Dragging a MIDI Apple loop to the tracks area no longer creates an empty instance of Drum Machine Designer. Thank you. And then dragging multiple Apple loops to the track area now creates tracks correctly when one or more of the drag loops uses a track stack patch. So nothing big, but some nice little quality of life things if you're using Apple loops, which I feel like we should all be using a little bit more just to see the functionality. But if you're not into using Apple loops, and I'm not talking about the old school Apple loops, I'm talking about all the new packs that come out every single update. We've gotten so many things from them, and even though they look the same, they don't sound the same. And some of the new things are really cool. HST says this sounds like the low-hanging fruit update, which it certainly feels that way. And I've got a theory coming up in just a few minutes. Sound library, because we are getting really close. Well, I'm not going to scroll too far. We are getting close. Sound library. Patch merging set for a track now persists when another track is selected. Oh, I can't tell you how long I've had to just keep my tongue going through this list with all of you before getting to this and telling you that this is one of the most important things that came out in 11.2. If you don't know what patch merging is, this is, and let's click on this instrument up here. It's down in the bottom left-hand corner with those 3 dots, and it lets me decide which things get merged when loading a new patch. So I can just say instruments, audio effects, or nothing. Sends as well. So I can say I want the instrument and the audio effects, right? And then I can load up something over here, and it will just load the things that are in blue. It won't load anything else. Although, okay, that makes me angry because I thought we were going to be beyond this. But look, I had sends turned off, and it had a send, and it added, well, it didn't add a send, but it had a send loaded. That, maybe it's because, okay, I was wrong. We're okay. I had a send already on the track. So we're okay. When I have the patch merging turned off, it means it's going to leave whatever sends I already have. Whew, that was close for a second. But now, let's add another track over here. And another track. In the past, this thing would close and go away and they would turn off. Now I can leave the patch merging up all the time. And it will just work like that throughout the entire session. This is by far, okay, they have not redeemed themselves, but that's a big deal for those of us who use patch merging. Drum synth tracks now adopt the name of a preset loaded from the sound library as expected. Okay, that was too many words. Ultrabeat now reliably plays back the correct samples after saving a project with all assets and then changing the Ultrabeat preset. Well, for all of you wondering if they were ever going to update Ultrabeat ever again, there you go. We got one to make it kind of work like it should. That's like an old beat up Chevy that we give to our kids when they're driving in high school, so that if they wreck it or they dent it, we don't see the dents because it's already dented. Man. Renaming an audio file in a project now updates its references and all alternatives for the project. Dang, hope you didn't get screwed by that particular bug. That's a pretty big one. The score. 3 updates for the score. The score no longer duplicates the instrument name if the track has regions with different score styles, and fill the gaps options. Okay, I'm not going to read all those. It has 3 updates for the score. Any of you using the score know that you're like using an old piece of software that does get updated but is old. And I find a very, very compelling case to use it with things when I'm writing music, and I can just put up the musical notes, the notation, instead of the MIDI in the piano roll. But I'm not printing out scores from Logic, and I'd be surprised if we had more than like a dozen people in the country doing that. I would be surprised. I didn't say it's not happening. Editing. We have a number of different editing things, although a lot of these are the same as before. Sentences with commas left hanging at the end of them, or no periods at all when all the others have periods. It's like, get a proofreader, please. The event list editor no longer shows unexpected characters when displaying lyrics. Specifying a repeat range with time handles in the piano roll now works as, it's like, oh my gosh, it works as expected. It wasn't working as expected before. Great. Maybe, and I mean this seriously, maybe they should do, if I were in charge of the update schedule at Apple with Logic, just Logic, I don't care about all the rest, but I would say, you know what, let's do bug fixes once a month. Let's fix some of this stuff once a month instead of letting some of these things sit around for 6 months. Thank you very much. Like, just update it once in a while more often. And we'd all be like, cool, they're fixing bugs. Then they're going to do big features. They're fixing bugs. They're going to do big features. Some of us don't have that much longer to live, let alone the time to just deal with the bugs that they know about and they wait half of a year to fix. Ugh. Rant over. Okay, other things. Now work as expected. Resolves an issue, fixes an issue, resolves an issue. The cursor now immediately changes. Oh my gosh, there's just so many things in this. I'm not going to read them all, but it's fine. Control surfaces and MIDI controllers. Didn't think we were going to get much of updates in this area. We don't really, but here's a few things. Bypass all control surface command now completely bypasses Mackie control devices. Thank you. I do have one that uses Mackie control. It's an issue. There are now separate tabs for MIDI messages and OSC messages in the controller assignments editor. That's going to be interesting. Anybody using OSC? I'm not, but I tried it one time, but it was too awkward. Didn't work well enough. But Touch OSC apparently is still a thing. Layouts using the Mackie control protocol now reliably show track names in new projects. Great. So just a few things. Like they're just cleaning up an old protocol. It's fine. We don't have a new protocol, really. I mean, Logic does work with Yukon, kind of. I've used it in the past couple weeks with our S6 on campus. It works kind of. Logic Remote Play surfaces now switch to MIDI mono mode when a track with an instance of sculpture in mono mode is selected. So there's fixing a bug. I'm curious to see. I haven't looked at the Logic Remote app to see if they've done anything new with it, but I doubt it given that they didn't mention it anywhere. Undo? Who knew that there were 7 things to fix about the undo functionality? But there were. So they fixed some undo. Should be better now. Whew. General. We'll see. Well, this is I think it's our last section. It is. This is our last section. And then we're gonna talk about how you should all be starting to use, if you want to stay in Logic, how you should all be using the iPad version of it, because clearly Apple has told us through this update what's important to them. And the desktop version of Logic is not it. Sure, they fixed a lot of things. 6 months to do what they did here, that means they're working on something else. It means that one person is probably like sifting through this and doing, even if they were doing just a couple of these, just a few things a week, chasing down bugs, it's like one person's job to do everything in 6 months for this. I'm not a programmer, but this stuff seemed pretty small. Maybe a couple people. Because, I mean, there was a number of fixes, but who knows? Okay, general. Option dragging multiple selected regions to the end of a project extends the project length to accommodate the copied regions as expected. I don't know if that wasn't working before, but I feel like I've run into that at times recently. An open contextual menu in the track area is now dismissed as expected when a new selecting multiple regions by clicking and dragging. That is grammatically not correct. There is now a paste and match style option in the notes window. Cool. Under customize control bar and display, there is now an option to toggle between master volume and output volume. Interesting. So under customize output meter and master volume. I like that. That's a nice little tweak that we can do. Huh. Cool. I haven't looked through all of those to see if there's other new things there, but Logic no longer shows an unexpected track name is frozen alert when copying and pasting automation with the marquee tool. Cool. Custom project templates organized into multiple folders are now sorted alphabetically. I just did a video yesterday about templates where I made a template That's good to know. Changing the LCD display no longer disables quick help. But quick help is actually really good. If any of you are trying to learn Logic, turn on quick help. That is actually a great way to do this. HST is saying, I frequently don't want my project and end time to extend when dragging. Is there an option to lock it? I doubt it. I haven't seen one. And now they're just saying that it'll just expand it if you drag it. So I don't know. That's a good question. Snap to zero crossing now works for the right side of audio regions. That's hilarious. They didn't even say as expected. They're just like, well, zero crossing snapping wasn't working for the right side of audio. Is that like, if you look at an audio region, the right side, or is it talking about the left channel versus the right channel? I mean, that's written by somebody who's coding and doesn't even understand what we're talking about. The Q reference button is now consistently available in projects or templates created in older versions of Logic Pro. Cool. Oh, let's see, I'm going to scroll down. Oh, like there's stuff here, but it's not, none of it's really critical. Dude, yeah, this is all, it's fine. It's all good. We're making it better. We're making it better. Fixes an issue in a text entry. Okay, no, blah, blah, blah. This is all fine. So, a lot of small things. Someone in the comments said low hanging fruit, which I think sums this up really nicely, because I do think that this was all just low hanging fruit, nothing fancy. They're just like, you know what? We're working on something bigger. Let's just give them a bunch of fixes and a couple things that were easy to do. Like they probably had all that stuff with the stem extractor and just didn't give it to us all at the beginning. And then they're like, you know what? We have this functionality. Let's slowly release it out to them so they feel like they're getting things. I mean, I can imagine a conversation like that. In the same way that the Empire is like, let's not tell people about this Death Star that we're going to build. We're just going to slowly build it in private. Anybody who hears about it, let's kill them. But, you know, sure. The Death Star I'm referring to is the fact that the iPad version of Logic got a couple really big features. And so they're doing some things in their code with the iPad app at a level that they're not doing on the desktop version, which means, and this is like a teacher analogy in some way, when I have students who are at a bar, like they know they're competent, and I have students that aren't, it's like we spend a lot of time getting those students up to the competent level, right? They're looking at Logic Pro, the desktop version, as kind of the place where if they were to get rid of a bunch of features, people would be angry and switch apps, right? If you lost your favorite thing in Logic, how upset would it make you? Well, that's what they're trying to figure out, because the iPad version of Logic, the way that they're developing it, it just got released like a year ago, right? And they just added MIDI control of parameters. You can learn MIDI control now to control things. That was one of the biggest things we were missing, because now we're going to be able to hook control surfaces to the iPad version. What else are we missing in the full version of Logic Pro for iPad? We're missing the score editor. May or may not come across ever to that platform. We're missing like the full some of the full functionality of like Alchemy and a sampler, but we have them there. We could use them. We just can't exactly control them. My guess is that those plugins on there have the full functionality. We're just being given a certain amount of them as they sort out the interface and make the interface better and better. So one day we're going to all wake up and then they're going to announce the newest version of Logic, probably November of this year, when it's a year after, 11 came out, or actually 11.1. It could be 2026 in the spring. They think about things in terms of years, not months or days or weeks. And we're going to wake up and the iPad version is going to be the version that they're announcing to us. It'll be more efficient because they made it from the ground up in many ways. I'm sure they had to use some code, but it's not the same program as Logic. They just are compatible with each other, but they're not the same program. Otherwise, they would have all the same things, and they don't. And so we're going to wake up, and this desktop version will be gone, and the new version will be here. They did that before. We know that Apple has done that. They did it with Final Cut Pro, where one day everybody woke up and there was a new version, Final Cut 10, and it looked a lot like iMovie and nothing like the version of Final Cut before it. And so there you go. Awesome. So tonight we're going to do one more stream. We'll see if anyone shows up for it, but we are going to be going through the release notes of Logic Pro for iPad. And we are going to be looking at the new MIDI control features, and we'll have, we have all the new cool things that we got here for the most part, the stem splitter and things like that. We're not like behind in that realm. We just are going to look at it in a different way. But I'm actually excited because I like the Logic Pro version for iPad. I find the format of the iPad tricky at best, but I wouldn't mind if they add some more of the features that I care most about, taking the iPad version and having it over on my Mac. That doesn't bother me at all, as long as I have the features that I want and use. And currently, it can't do everything, but it's coming. It's coming. It's so clear that they've diverted a number of resources over to that, where they just rethought a whole part of the app for this release. And then on the desktop version, it didn't. Yeah, exactly. HST is saying flex pitch on iPad. We need, and that actually makes a lot of sense on an iPad version where you have the touch interface and you could do all of that stuff. They just need to make some of the touch points a little bit clearer, bigger, and then move from note to note. But I have my iPad and I got an external monitor for my iPad, which is good. It works. The iPad version of Logic, when I put it to the iPad, which is a different aspect ratio than my iPad, it all just like flicked right into place and gave me a lot more space. And I have a trackpad and a keyboard and a MIDI keyboard and an audio interface, and all of that stuff works right now. So we're not looking at like, it needs to get better. It's already good and it already does some things amazingly. We just need a few more of the features to be released on it. And they just took a huge step towards that today. So we'll see. Amelia. Yes, you would think that they're working on a guitar one, or more features for the drummer or the bass player or the piano player. Guitar, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing like a good string section, having the session player functionality, or a good horn section, things that I can't easily do myself. And then a guitar, of course. It's like I really find it hard to believe that they wouldn't be working on it, but I mean, you just saw what 11.2 was today. It took 6 months to get here. So another 6 months, right? 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then another 6 months. Like, learn how to play guitar. You could probably do it faster than a guitar session player is going to come out from Logic. But there are third-party ones that do it. So if you really need it now, there are third-party tools that do guitar things. They just don't follow the chord track. So that's I'm interested in the stuff that fits in the ecosystem, not trying to make an outside party's solution fit into the ecosystem, because they just won't. HK says, I hope they put variable input volume on the amps like other that like now you're talking like a guitar player. How dare you? How dare you think like a guitar player would do? But you're right. Placidon says 8 ads on the stream, which we've been in for an hour. I mean, that's like watching your favorite hour-long drama on TV at night. So, thanks for watching. I bit the bullet. I don't pay for tons of subscription things, but Google or YouTube, I guess, YouTube Premium is one that I pay for because I never want to watch an ad on YouTube ever again in my entire life. And so I pay for YouTube Premium, like $12 or $13 a month. And it is the best money I've ever spent. And I never watch ads ever again. So keep that in mind. Also, we're going to pull the plug on this in just a minute, but we are going to, again, do one more stream tonight with the iPad version. I'll have it up on the screen. I've got a whole streaming set up for my iPad so you can actually hear things and see them in action. It won't be a static stream. We will talk about the release notes for the iPad version, and we'll maybe look and see if the remote had anything at all of note. I doubt it. It has been years since they have done. In summary, my favorite updates of the entire 11.2 thing are the patch merging functionality getting fixed, the saving the undo history when you turn it off, the additional QRS reverb functionality, which is great, and then maybe the long throw faders, maybe, I don't know. We already had that, we already had the flashback capture for MIDI before this. They just called it something new and expect you all to think it's a new feature, but it's not. Yes. Is that really what it says? Because I haven't looked at the iPad version yet. If that's really what it says, that'd be awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a great place to end. This is going to be an evening stream for the third and final stream tonight, but you can watch the replay later if you would like. And then we'll be doing a number of shorter videos explaining features over the next week, just to make sure everyone who wants to get a little deeper dive. I know there's a bunch of YouTubers making content. Music Help Tech Guy did a great video. Why Logic Pro Rules did a great video. But they're all looking at the features and saying, here's the cool new features. And the one thing that I feel like we're getting a little bit differently on this channel is somebody who has the autonomy and freedom to say some of the negative things about it as well. And so come back for your daily dose of negativity this evening when we talk about the iPad version and how it plans to overtake music production. And there's nothing you can do about it. Sweet. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.